Gun on YouTube. This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the fifth album by country band Alabama. Basically, this product is called Feel So Right, and it came out in the winter of 1981. So the thing about this particular band here, as far as the pitch is going to happen, I want to start to get into more far back country as far as this particular fair is going to happen. I want to see some stuff about this as far as the particular kind of went. There's some country bands I've been reviewing and pitches like that, but I want to get some more of these just to kind of help distinguish and substantiate kind of like the aspect of like more country type fair as opposed to just like what I've reviewed in the past, which is just mostly Jason Aldean, Florida Georgia Line, some folks like that, Taylor Swift, some of those type fairs that I'd say. Get into some more of these. I mean, the aspect is going to be kind of dicey, and it's going to be kind of like throwing paint at an easel as far as this pitch going to happen. This kind of concept of maybe an album from 1981, one from 1995, one from 1988, one from 2003, some of those type pitches. But it's just within the appeal that it is going to happen as I start to patch it together and can kind of see some of the aspects about some of these as far as those fairs going to happen. Because I definitely think so I definitely say knowing plenty of things about rap music, R&B, pop music, rock music, metal, some of those type ones, but I need to get to more country as far as those fairs going to happen. So it's just with an aspect of it. This is a pretty good staple here. Definitely out of 80s country. I don't know as full bound as many country artists from the 80s. Like you would probably think folks like Bob Seger, some of those type of folks, like to a certain extent country rock, like Leonard Skinner, some of those type of folks. I don't really know as full bound as far as those pitches going to happen, but there's a number of folks. I think this might have been a little bit before Tim McGraw, some of those type of fairs. Maybe Billy Ray Cyrus was somewhat around like the 80s as far as those fairs going to happen, but just within the full boundness, Bob Dylan, some of those type of folks that I say, it's just within the pitch. Maybe Bob Dylan was a little bit before this, but I look after the tone as far as the fair kind of goes. This is an excellent album here. Just being able to say this is a real classic type of appeal. I'm surprised that this only went 4 tons platinum just within the pitch behind it, especially considering that it's been around for over 40 years. Just within some of that type of fair. Definitely has a lot of aspects behind it. It has like some good steppers on here. It's this kind of aspect. This is a pretty balanced type country album. It's not just in one particular direction. It has the aspect of just being able to nail some of these type of fairs just within 10 short songs to nails a lot of these particular ones. This is somewhat of a sleepy album. It's kind of a little bit more just within the drowsy type sense of just like some outback type fare, just typical kind of just report to work, some of that standardness of just like a typical kind of push and brush about it within like a summer type glaze. Great music for like about mid-late July to about November as far as those fairs going to happen. Just looking after the tone behind it, its relative kind of aspects within that. I mean, for the most part, minus songs like Fantasy and Hollywood, I'd say most of this is rather just kind of drowsy, sleepy, and glazed, but I like the tone behind it. It's real similar to like, it does have some good spices within the aspect, but I do think within the pitch, I do definitely think within the pitch for like early 80s as far as thinking before things were kind of in CD type format, just the aspect of getting like a classic album within the relative type sense, within the aspect of getting like a classic country album before like about the mid 80s as far as those fairs going to happen. There's some definite excellent type fair just in the aspect before things were kind of more fleshed out in terms of more contemporary type senses. Just good pitch, realizing that there's some Liddy type gems on this particular type fair as far back as 1981. Good type pitch to be able to see some of that as far as those aspects will kind of happen with it. Just a good particular fair is just being able to, I mean, because like when I think of certain albums from like early 80s, like when you think of like Blizzard of Oz by Ozzy Osbourne, some of those type ones, for the most part, so in certain senses, in most senses, like when you think of Blizzard of Oz by Ozzy Osbourne and Back in Black by AC/DC, it's mainly like the singles that get most of the airplay, but a lot of these do have like a lot of classic type appeal just for saying for like vinyl type records as far as the pitch of having to listen to each song before you could get to like song 4 and 5 and 6 and then flipping the disc of the vinyl disc as far as being able to say getting to the other side and playing the other songs as far as this first going to happen. This is actually pretty, if this was, I have with it kind of being in vinyl type format, it nails a lot of these appeals pretty wholesomely well, I'd say, within the pitch behind it. So some good type aspects there as far as this first going to happen. Just classic album, just like pretty much like I would say like a country version, especially like more outback kind of within a sense of like just like something that like is a notable kind of early 80s kind of metal album, like something by Queen or Ozzy Osbourne or like AC/DC, some of those type folks. There's obviously other ones I'm just not thinking of within the pitch. Just some good type fare. Just kind of, once again, just the aspect of getting towards it. But so we'll go ahead and talk about the singles here. There were 3 of them just within the pitch. I think that may have been the reason why this only went like 4 tons platinum after all this time, is just the pitch that it did. Like, this is like excellent album here within the pitch. Definitely a classic country album in my opinion as far as those fairs going to have. Definite big deal as far as like 80s country as far as those fairs going to happen. Seemed like a lot of these singles stretched along within a relative lengthy type fashion, I'd have to say. But I look after it, it is a little bit brief compared to this kind of concept. I would have probably put out like at least 1 more single, and definitely within the concept. Most of these, like I was saying, the 3 singles here are a lot more sleepy within a sense. These are a lot more just more kind of smoky, sultry within a sense. Just a little bit more tinged as far, a little bit warmer tinged as far as the aspect kind of goes. Just the aspect of like something a little bit more ferocious in terms of like a more social type fare. A lot of these are just more kickback, almost residential bound compared to like a little bit more weekend kind of Friday, Thursday type step out, Saturday type step out, I'd have to say. But it's within a pitch. The singles are pretty good. It's just more typical. Like a lot of this, I feel like there's some diner music on here as far as what's first going to happen. It's more kind of get grub like a local spot, some pitches like that. The standard kind of just get coffee, newspaper, some of those type pitches. Just a relative kind of kickback within some of those type senses. But that's all three of the singles. So we'll get this album. Basically, the lead single is Old Flame. This is like an after hours kind of civil retire to kind of get here. I definitely feel like just a brushy kind of diner music, I'd have to say. Just old fashioned kind of bookstore. Definitely affairs like that. I'd have to say some Sunset Gaze and just like a good song to talk to and chat as far as those pitch kind of happen. So it's just one. It's typical kind of step out within a sense. There's flames nearby as far as those aspects kind of happen just within the tone behind it. Just one. Like I don't know how much full bound bookstores would kind of play like country music, but it's just a more old fashioned type one. Probably where there'd be more paperback books, pitches like that. Some of those type places. Typical kind of diner type fare. Some of those type pitches. It's a little bit more just the aspect of just behind saying old fashioned within the pitch behind it. It's just a good type tone kind of get to some of those type ones. It's good type fare, just more uptown type brush within the pitch behind it. But it just has the aspect of this having some real good degree. This has a relative kind of social spice about it, but it's just real mild and like the sauce of how it kind of particularly does. It's just within the tone as far as saying that it does. This does not just feel like sauntering at the house as far as this fair's going to happen, but it's just within the aspect of just like a relatively lazy, just kind of more, not necessarily full bound drowsy, but just a little bit more relaxed and just kind of sedate type aspect as far as like the aspect of just maybe getting like the standard, the usual meal that you would get when stepping out just within the pitch, but just some fair disc, flames long, bay along, some of those type pitches, just an aspect like a typical kind of just mild kind of social, just an aspect, just standard sparks for those fairs going to happen. Good type tone for that, just basic type country type song in like a lazy type sense. Feels So Right is the second single, and this one's a little bit more, Feels So Right, the title track's a little bit more glazed, just within the sense I would say it's like a drifty kind of sunset summer glaze kind of get here, just some pasttiming kind of kickback. I would definitely feel like more residential bound. I'd have to say just delicate kind of unwind. I would definitely feel like here just dying simple product as far as those pitch kind of happen with it. Good type conduct to get some of this. Just would have to say is just kind of the pitch. It just more kind of neighborhood romps just within some of that standard type fare, typical kind of countryside gaze as far as those fares would kind of happen with it. Just outback kind of smoke a few, just pitches like that. Just simple kind of chit chat, simple kind of light dinner or barbecue type fare, just an aspect of like a standard type fare. Just like a little bit of outdoor grooves within the pitch as far as I would particularly go. Just another, I mean, the aspect behind both these singles is just a little bit more relaxed and just kind of more like not necessarily chill type music. Just not, it's not so much like lo-fi type stuff within the pitch, but just kind of the concept as far as saying that this is a little bit more. It's just not like the groove behind it is not like spicy. I'd say it's just within the pitch a little bit more. Both these songs are more cozy within an aspect, and that's definitely some good type tones going to get that. So Old Flame and Feel So Right are more cozy within that pitch. And Love in the First Degree is the third single. And this is the most factory type one I'd have to say here. I'm almost tempted. I'm gonna look up like the chart appeal of some of these songs. All three of these songs hit #1 on the country charts back in the day as far as those fares going to happen back in the 80s, but some good type pitches because at least Feels So Right and Love in the First Degree were some songs that hit like the top 20 on the Billboard 100, so these were these are crossover and breakthrough singles as far as those pitches going to happen. I definitely felt within the aspect that Love in the First Degree felt like one that might have done that, but Love in the First Degree is like a stretching kind of countryside haze kind of get here to some outback kind of evening makeshift, I'd have to say. Simple grub and relief type song kind of get within those pitches, I'd have to say. Simple grub and relief type song kind of get within those pitches. So I just look after here as far as those fares going to happen. Just one that just feels a little bit more workaday, just within the chop of just getting through the standard push in the day fare as far as those aspects going to happen. A little bit, probably I'd say somewhere between like 4:30 to about 6:15 or 7:40, 7:15. Some of those type pitches I'd say within the aspect behind. Just a good aspect for some of that particular just typical kind of get last minute things wrapped up just in the pitch behind it. Get like the fares that just what needs to happen for the rest of the night as far as get the rest of the day kind of roped up as far as the particular aspect behind that fare kind of happens with it. And it's just kind of a simple concept of just kind of have like the makeshift kind of push behind it. So it's a good type tone for some of those particular type ones. All three of these singles are some great settle-in type music as far as those fares going to happen with it. Just the aspect of this, the concept of like a relative. I mean, these songs don't imply as much like a lengthy kind of relative aspect to like some lengthy kind of grief as far as those aspects going to go. But it is a good type tone just being able to have. Not to say, and obviously, this good commerce as far as those pitches will kind of happen with it. Just to say within that particular aspect as far as that kind of goes. But just like the relief of just like, all right, time to unwind, get dinner going, flip on the TV, some of those type pitches as far as that fair going to have. So it's just good aspect. But yeah, it's just more kind of cozy type music with an aspect, good type tone for that as far as those fairs going to happen. So yeah, basically I recommend like every single one of these 10 songs on here. every single one of these 10 songs out this album minus the song Ride the Train. So basically this album, me recommending 9 out of 10 songs on this particular album. I'm going to go ahead and give this album like a 9.75 out of 10 just within the pitch, just right on the cusp of being like a 10 out of 10. I just feel like within the pitch, just with there only being 10 songs, I mean, for the most part, 9 out of 10 is extremely excellent just within the fare behind it. You would think that would be like a virtual 10. It's just kind of the tone as far as that kind of goes along with it. But Ride the Train, the only reason why I didn't recommend this song is that this was like the only up-tempo song. There's like a series of up-tempo songs on here, Ride the Train, Fantasy, and Hollywood, that have a little bit more snap compared to like most of the kind of more delicate type sense of this project, or just more makeshift kind of gummy, the more makeshift kind of just glazed type sense within the aspect, more folksy type sense. But Ride the Train was just one that just didn't have as much full bound kind of appeal. This was just kind of like a more kind of like country outback kind of dance type song, but just didn't nail like the full bound. It's not so much dance, but just kind of more backyard kind of picnic, big festivity, social powwow type fare, just an aspect, a little bit jovial within the sense, but just the tone of how the conduct behind it was just not as full bound within the execution behind it. So that's the only real snag about this particular project. Not to say snag full bound, but just was not one as connecting, I'd say. But other than that, this album basically damn near, I mean, it virtually is a classic as far as those aspects going to go. If it had had like another song like Fantasy, another song like Feels So Right, another song like Love in the First Degree within the aspects of having that connecting type pair, those are some real favorable type ones. Another song like Hollywood, some of those type pitches, just a song that could have had like a little bit like just nailed like the social aspects of like this vicious type flavor, especially like Fantasy or Hollywood. I would have said this probably, I mean, 9.75 is not like any farce. That's just kind of the concept for that say. So it's just 9.75. That's the only real snag, the only real mishap within this particular album. So that's the concept. But let's talk about some of these songs on here. So just going through the list here, yeah, to talk about once again about one of my more favorite songs of this particular album. Definitely an album standout and a highlight of this album is Fantasy. It's like a snappy kind of disco country bop to kind of get here. Just great groove and foot tap, I'd have to say about this particular song. Social step out definitely, and should have been a single as far as this first gonna happen. Just had a real great groove and melodies about this particular one. It was just one that just feels like great kind of perfect early 80s kind of Friday type music as far as those fairs gonna happen. Thursday type fair is good type concept to kind of have some pizzazz and just have like the aspect of just having like a little bit more of like a social spice about it within those particular fairs. Good type tone. Just works as like a conduit. Like if like I feel like the singles are just kind of more beginning of the week, more Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and possibly Wednesday type music. But for Thursday, Friday type fair, there's some ones like Fantasy and I would also say Hollywood, some of those type ones. So to talk about Hollywood here, this is another pretty favorable type one. It's a real nice standout as far as those highlights going to go. This is like a glissy kind of town hop and date night to kind of get within those aspects. There's some folksy kind of step out, I'd have to say. It goes with Fantasy, like I was saying. It's like a more romantic kind of dinner type hit to kind of get within some of those type tones. So just kind of one, not so much like going to like a dance club or something like that, going to pound shots, some of those type fairs, but just maybe going to like a place where there would be dinner and maybe like something just afterward as far as like the concept, like some standard entertainment, just places where there'd be kind of a combination of both as far as this fair is going to happen. Just kind of the concept of this having this relative civilness about it, but also within the aspect of like it's going to be like a thrill this within like Friday type fair. So it's probably more Thursday type music, just in the aspect if you do have work the next day, something like that, where you want to step out, but it's not as full bound crazy. It just works like a good 1-2 punch, with Fantasy being first and Hollywood being the next one. Even though Hollywood would probably be Thursday type music and Fantasy would probably be Friday type music, just within the pitch. But I'm Stoned is a pretty good one. Now the aspect behind this, I think this is more talking about this I'm stoned as and I'm kind of glum, as opposed to more saying that stoned off of like smokage as far as this pitch can happen. But it's a good type tone for that. It's like some after moments, kind of diner music I'd have to say here, and down in the dumps kind of aspects about it. There's definitely some evening dredge I'd have to say. Just long day kind of makeshift. So it's just within the tone of just like a song that you would play with like Love in the First Degree, just kind of within the aspect of just a little bit more kind of bewildered, just within the tone behind it. Just a little bit more of like this, a little bit more like the aspects of like the work week. It was a little bit more of a bitch these particular few days here as far as those aspects gonna happen. Just one of those type ones, typical kind of country malaise and just kind of this aspect of wallow as far as those pitch kind of go along with it. Good type one that just nails the appeal, same sort of melodies and aspects that just nails the vibes as far as doing it. But this factory type one for 80s country, just glumness. Not complaining about the song, it's just the pitch. It is a nice one here to be able to get some of that, so there's just some good ones. Pretty much goes well with the singles, more beginning of the week type fare. I'd say Burn Georgia Burn's a nice one, as well as like a simmering kind of evening brush, kind of get within those aspects. Goes with the singles, definitely just some settle in kind of extra music. I'd have to say about songs like some further kind of settle in. I'd have to say within those particular aspects, this extra music, kind of smoke, and some relief as far as those tones kind of go along with this. So it's just kind of the tone. One of those typical kind of sunset gazing type ones, kind of get within the tone behind it. Just pretty much more so than Love in the First Degree or Old Flame. Kind of goes more with Feels So Right, the title track. I'd have to say in particular, just one of those ones. It's kind of a more smoky type aspect to this, like this gazing, just a little bit more romantic within the pitch behind it, but just not as full bound compared to Feels So Right or Old Flame. I'd say is within the pitch that it's a little bit makeshift, a little bit Burn Georgia Burns, a little bit evening makeshift relief, a little bit just kind of the aspect of just like some smoky kind of disc neighborhood type fare within the aspect, just the more kind of cozy type one, but just within the aspect of a little bit of commerce in mind, just a little bit of like kind of in between. I'd have to say between Feel So Right and Love in the First Degree, just within some of those type of aspects. But simple kind of vanilla commerce, I'd have to say about that one. Burn Georgia Burn. Then See the Embers, Feel the Flame is a quality one as well. Now this one's a little bit of an uppity type song. Do you like the fare behind this one? Definitely like the energy of this particular song. It's like a productive kind of summer afternoon traverse kind of get here, just some errands and songs like some good day errands and wrap up fun. I'd have to say within those aspects. If you do have some stuff to do as far as those pitch kind of happen, just with like the standard push, like a factory day of just paying bills, getting some envelopes, stamps, some of those type pitches. It's typical conduct of just picking some stuff up. Maybe you got to get like a grill for your backyard, some of those type pitches, or just get like some lighters, some of that type push. It's typical type push as far as those aspects can happen. Maybe you got to get like a grill or some lighters, some of those type pitches, just standard fare. Get like some groceries, some of that type pitch, just with an aspect of just getting like it's the productive type day, just within the aspect of just like just more busybody within the sense behind it. It's just kind of one of those ones that like just feels like more kind of on the go, just more particular in motion compared to some of these type ones. This is one that feels like it stands out more like within a normal aspect of this particular album. Most of this, like I was saying, is pretty drowsy and sleepy, but this is actually one where it's like, hey, you're kind of wide awake, just the productive kind of hot summer, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, some of that type fare, just getting standard things kind of done, whether it is just errands or just more just having activities to do. And then Woman Back Home is a quality one as well. It's like a simmering kind of neighborhood evening commute to kind of get here. Just kind of the push of like songs like Burn Georgia Burn and Love in the First Degree, just a little bit more romantic in mind. I had to say it's a typical kind of workaday push. I feel like about this song, just a feeling nice type one to kind of get here. This one's kind of the opposite of like a song like basically I'm Stoned. Is this kind of the concept, a little bit more just commerce type fare, just mild commerce. I'd say it's not so much like countryside cruising, this neighborhood, it's not so much like countryside cruising, this like lengthy kind of traverse, but just the aspect, this residential type fare, just typical kind of stuff, just maybe getting like some Burger King, getting like some lighters, pitches like that, some of those type of aspects, this typical type fare, getting like some shoes, some of those aspects, just but I'd say this kind of concept of this kind of sparky type one, just with bellas in mind as far as those pitch kind of happen, just good type sparky type one, just with the flame in mind as far as those tones kind of happen. So it's just good type tones as far as those pitch kind of go, good aspect for that. So once again, this album gets a 9.75 out of 10, some excellent type fare within that. The social score I'll probably give, that's the tricky type aspect there. I'd probably say the social score would probably get like a 9.25 out of 10 because it does have some good gems on here. Definitely aspect to having like some good outing type fare within the pitch, just between like some of these ones, like obviously Hollywood, Fantasy, and See the Embers, Feel the Flame are some ones that are a little bit more productive and like the outing type aspects, like some social type fare, but there's also some ones for like some more kind of neighborhood crawls as far as those pitch kind of goes. Songs like Love in the First Degree, Burn Georgia Burn, and like I'm Stoned, and even Woman Back Home, they're just more residential bound for like some of that type fare. But most of these are pretty social, even if it's not with your pals and like some Friday or your pals or bellas as far as like some Friday, Thursday types. Even if it's not with your pals or some bellas as far as like some Friday, Thursday type step out, it is within the pitch of just having like some relative kind of commotion. There's not terribly many of these songs that are just more around the neighborhood or around the house. There's not terribly many songs as far as more around the house as far as those particular fares can happen. Most of this that has some degree of social type fare, even Old Flame and like Love in the First Degree, the singles have some of that relative type aspect. It's more residential bound for the most part, I'd have to say, but it's just within the tone as far as saying that there's something going on. So it's just within the pitch. It's just not super lazy where it's just television watching and just standard fare like that. I'd have to say this is kind of the aspect. So it's just within the pitch as far as saying pretty much the only real song I can say within that aspect that's the most kind of cozy, the full bound, or just the most kind of relaxive, I'd have to say would probably be Feel So Right, the title track. But within the pitch, most of this is just kind of neighborhood romps, just within a relative kind of just plushy and kind of comfortable type kickback, just to be able to get within some of those type aspects, just the real good taste of the cozy life, I'd say, within the tone behind it, good aspects there. So that's the pitch, the 9.25. But the reason why I get that is just because, once again, I do feel like I really was a huge fan of songs like Fantasy, definitely, and then Hollywood is a pretty nice one. Just some good pitch. Definitely going to use another song or two like that within those pitches. But for the most part, nails these deliveries pretty damn well. So just the aspects. So in terms of the future, I'm not really as full-bound sure as to what Alabama's kind of been up to in these recent times. I'd say within some of those aspects, just within the tone behind it. This is a classic type album here, but it is from 1981 as far as those pitches kind of go. So it's a ways back as far as those pitches kind of happen. So they probably have had albums throughout the 80s and 90s. I don't know as full-bound as like some of these chart appeals further on as far as those pitches kind of go. We'll definitely have to get some more of these, but just in the aspect, this is a classic country album of the early 80s. Did a lot of damage just in the aspect. Seems like it had a good widespread amount of popularity, and I do recommend it within a lot of senses.